On a warm Chicago morning, Marcus quietly mopped the marble floor while heels clicked around him. Rebecca, a proud young intern, snapped in disgust when a drop of water touched her shoe. Her mockery drew silent stares, but Marcus said nothing, only cleaned the mess with dignity. No one knew the janitor they ignored was the real owner of the company. The morning sun spilled through the glass walls of Crestview Corporate Tower, catching the shine of freshly polished floors. It was just another Monday in downtown Chicago, coffee cups in hand, deadlines in heads, and no one looking down. Marcus moved slowly across the lobby, his mop gliding in rhythm with the hum of conversation. His uniform was faded, sleeves rolled, name tag barely legible. To everyone else, he was just the janitor. But behind those calm eyes lived stories of struggle, patience, and quiet power. At 8:47 a.m., the sound of heels echoed sharply against the marble. Rebecca Bennett, 24, ambitious, and overdressed for an intern, strode through the lobby with her phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was sharp, confident, entitled. "No, Dad, I told you. This internship could make my career. These people are important." As she walked past Marcus, a droplet of mop water landed near her tan high heel. She stopped, looked down, and frowned as if she'd stepped in something dirty. "Seriously?" she snapped, her disgust echoing across the room. "Can't you people watch where you're going?" The conversations in the lobby quieted, phones lowered. A few smirks appeared. Someone even chuckled under their breath. Marcus straightened his back, his hand tightening on the mop handle. For a second, their eyes met, hers full of annoyance, his calm but unreadable. Then, without a word, he bent down, wiped the small spot clean, and continued working. Rebecca rolled her eyes and muttered, "Unbelievable," before walking away, her perfume trailing behind her arrogance. The silence that followed was heavier than the insult itself. A receptionist shifted awkwardly. A security guard looked away. Nobody spoke up, because no one ever did. Marcus finished his section of the floor, moved the wet floor sign aside, and leaned the mop against the wall. He glanced at the large company logo glimmering under the sunlight. His company. The empire he'd built from nothing after years of hard work and failure. But he had learned long ago, true power doesn't need to announce itself. It watches, listens, and waits. He took a slow breath, eyes scanning the lobby full of people too busy to notice what dignity looks like. He wasn't angry, just quietly disappointed. As he walked past the reception desk, the security guard whispered, "You okay, man?" Marcus gave a small smile. "Yeah," he said softly. "I've seen worse." And he had. Much worse. As the elevator doors closed behind him, his reflection stared back. The same man the world thought invisible, hiding in plain sight among those who believed they stood above him. Tomorrow, they'd learn who he really was. The next morning at Crestview Corporate Tower, laughter echoed from the break room. That casual kind of laughter that hides cruelty inside it. Rebecca leaned against the counter, holding a coffee cup like a trophy. "You should have seen his face," she said, smirking. "He looked like he was about to cry over a little water. Poor guy probably hasn't seen a real paycheck in years." The room filled with muffled chuckles. Two analysts tried to look busy, stirring their coffee, while others exchanged uneasy glances. No one brave enough to speak up. In offices like this, silence was survival. Marcus entered quietly, carrying a small trash bin and a cleaning rag. He didn't interrupt, didn't frown, didn't defend himself. He simply went about his work, collecting used paper cups and wiping the counter near Rebecca's elbow. Her laughter trailed off, but the smugness stayed. "Oh, sorry," she said, voice dripping with mock politeness. "Didn't see you there." Marcus nodded, offering a calm, practiced smile. "It's all right, ma'am," he replied softly, placing the empty bin back under the sink. The others avoided his eyes, their guilt suddenly louder than the laughter had been. But one person watched him differently. Sarah Lopez, a new junior associate just 2 weeks into the job. She noticed how Marcus didn't rush, how his movements carried an odd sense of peace. There was no bitterness in his eyes, only something deeper, something patient. After he left, the break room felt strangely heavy. Sarah looked at Rebecca. "You ever think maybe he's just doing his job?" she asked quietly. Rebecca scoffed. "It's called ambition, Sarah. Some people have it, some don't," but Sarah didn't respond. She kept watching the door Marcus had walked through, the echo of his silence saying more than any defense ever could. Down the hall, Marcus wheeled his cart toward the service elevator. He paused for a moment, glancing out the window at the skyline, a reminder of how far he'd come. Every floor in this building, every shining glass panel, had been built from the ground up because he'd refused to let people like Rebecca define his worth. He remembered his father's voice, soft but firm. "Son, never argue with someone trying to prove they're better than you. Just live long enough for the truth to speak for itself." Marcus took a breath, steady and unbroken. He wasn't angry. Anger was fleeting, but patience, that was power. As he stepped into the elevator, the doors closed slowly, the reflection of his uniform fading into the brushed metal. The label said, "Maintenance access only," but behind that uniform stood the man who owned every key in that building. He adjusted his gloves, exhaled, and whispered under his breath, "Soon enough." By Friday morning, Crestview Corporate Tower was electric with anticipation. Emails flew, desks gleamed, and perfume hung thick in the air. Someone whispered that the mysterious company owner, a man no one had ever seen in person, was arriving that afternoon for a surprise inspection. Rebecca was the first to volunteer to stay late. She wanted to be seen, to stand out, to prove that she belonged among the best. "This is it," she told her reflection in the bathroom mirror, straightening her blazer. "He'll know I'm management material." Downstairs, Marcus mopped quietly near the main entrance. The building pulsed with nervous energy. Workers rushing to make everything perfect for a man they'd never met but already admired. They didn't notice Marcus watching from behind the glass doors as a sleek black SUV rolled up to the curb. Rebecca positioned herself near the reception desk, posture sharp, smile rehearsed. The elevator chimed. Everyone turned toward the lobby doors as the driver opened the back seat. A man stepped out, tall, calm, composed. For a moment, no one recognized him. Then silence fell like a curtain. It was Marcus, the same man they'd walked past, the same janitor they'd ignored. Rebecca's face was drained of color. Her polished smile cracked. The clipboard in her hand trembled slightly. Marcus's footsteps echoed on the marble floor. He wasn't wearing his uniform today. Just a dark gray suit, perfectly pressed. The kind that whispered quiet authority. His presence filled the space without effort. He stopped in the center of the lobby and looked around, taking in every face. The laughter, the judgment, the shallow pride that had lived in these halls. Finally his eyes met Rebecca's. "Good afternoon," he said, voice steady, almost gentle. "I've seen how you treat people." No one moved. The only sound was the low hum of the air conditioner and the faint tapping of Rebecca's heels as she shifted her weight. Marcus continued, "You all work hard, but some of you have forgotten that respect isn't earned by position. It's shown by how you treat those beneath you." His words didn't sting. They sank, deeper than any lecture could. Rebecca tried to speak. I didn't know." Marcus raised a hand softly. "That's the thing," he said. "You never asked." He looked around once more, his calm expression hiding the years of pain and patience that had brought him here. Then, turning toward the elevator, he added quietly, "Clean floors don't make a place great. Clean hearts do." The doors closed behind him, leaving a silence that felt heavier than shame. The morning sun spilled gently through the tall glass windows of the Crestview Tower, painting the marble floor Marcus once cleaned in warm gold. The office was quiet. Too quiet. The gossip, the laughter, the arrogance that once filled the air had vanished. On Rebecca's desk lay a sealed white envelope, her name handwritten in steady black ink. She hesitated before opening it, already sensing what it contained. Her heart sank as she unfolded the letter. "Rebecca, your internship ends today. Not as punishment, but as a lesson. How you treat people is who you are. Monsieur Carter." She read the words again and again. There was no anger in them, no pride, only truth. Her hands trembled as she placed the letter down. For the first time, the silence in the room wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. It forced her to face herself. That afternoon, she walked past the janitor's closet where Marcus used to work. The mop stood neatly against the wall, bucket empty, floor spotless. She remembered how she once mocked him there, her laughter echoing down the hallway. Now, the memory burned. Outside, the city moved as usual. Car horns, footsteps, a world too busy to care. Rebecca stood alone at the curb, clutching the letter, realizing how easily she had mistaken humility for weakness. Days turned into weeks. She didn't return to Crestview. Instead, she found herself volunteering at a small community shelter. On the south side, a place filled with the same people she once looked down on. She swept floors, served meals, and folded clothes. Each task stripped away a layer of the person she used to be. There were no cameras here, no executives watching, just faces full of quiet gratitude. For the first time, Rebecca felt something deeper than success. She felt peace. One evening, as she wiped a counter near the kitchen, a familiar voice spoke from behind her. "You missed a spot," Marcus said softly. Rebecca turned, startled, and then smiled through tears. "Guess I'm still learning," Marcus chuckled, nodding. "We all are." They stood in a shared silence, the kind that didn't need words. In that moment, Marcus wasn't a CEO, and Rebecca wasn't a disgraced intern. They were just two people, one who had fallen and one who had forgiven. As he turned to leave, Marcus looked back and said, "Grace is heavier than anger, Rebecca. Carry it well." The door closed behind him, leaving Rebecca standing in the soft light of the shelter, mop in hand, tears on her cheeks, and a heart lighter than it had ever been.